Hey guys, welcome to my channel. We are reading Diary of the Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul. It is book 9, and this is part 1. These are going to be the pictures of what we're looking at today. And I'm going to start reading. June, Friday. If there's one thing I've learned from my years of being a kid, it's that you have zero control over your life. Ever since school let out, I haven't had anything I've needed to do or anywhere I've needed to be. As long as the air conditioning was working and the TV remote had batteries in it, I was all set for the relaxing summer vacation. But then out of the blue, this happened. Pack your bags, we're going on a road trip. This isn't the first time Mom had sprung a trip on us without any warning. Last year, on the first day of summer, she said we're going upstate for a few days to visit Aunt Loretta at the nursing home. It wasn't exactly my idea of fun the way that kick off the summer. One time when we visited Aunt Loretta, her roommate grabbed me and wouldn't let me go until the staffer gave her a chocolate chip muffin. But Mom was just bluffing about going to the nursing home. At breakfast the next morning, she told us where we were really going. We're going to Disneyland. Me and my brother Roderick were happy because we both dreading spending the first week of summer vacation playing shuffleboard at the nursing home. But when my little brother Manny heard about the change in plans, he totally lost it. Mom had talked about the Aunt Loretta's trip so much that Manny was actually excited about going. We ended up postponing our trip to Disneyland so we could visit Aunt Loretta. You'd think Mom would have learned her lesson about surprise trips after that one. I know exactly where this road trip idea came from because the new issue of Family Folk magazine came in the mail today. If I had to guess, I'd say 90% of everything we do as a family comes from the idea Mom gets from that magazine. And when I saw the latest issue, I knew it was going to get Mom's wheels turning. Family Folk adventure awaits. Take an unlimited road trips. I flipped through Family Folk a few times and had to admit the pictures always make everything look like a lot of fun. But there must be something wrong with our family because we can never measure up to the ones who show in the magazine. I guess Mom's not giving up, though. She said this road trip is going to be awesome and that spending a lot of time together in the car will be a bonding experience for the whole family. I tried to talk to her and letting us know to do something normal, like going to the water park or going to the water park for the days, but Mom didn't want to hear it. Sorry guys, it's like literally 4:41 a.m. So, I'm literally reading this in the morning. She said the whole point of this trip is to do things we've never done before and have to enthusiastic experience. I thought Mom would have looped Dad in about her road trip idea, but apparently it was wrong. Because when we got home from work, he seemed just as surprised as us kids. Dad told Mom it was a bad time to be away from work and he didn't want to use his vacation days unless he absolutely had to. But Mom said there's nothing more important than spending time with your family. Then Dad told Mom he was really hoping to get his boat out of the water this weekend, and if we went on a road trip, he wouldn't be able to. Mom and Dad get along pretty well in general, but the one thing that's guaranteed to cause a fight between them is Dad's boat. A few years ago, Mom sent Dad out to get some milk, but along the way, he spotted a boat for sale in somebody's front yard. And before you know it, the boat was in our driveway. Mom was mad that Dad didn't check with her first because having the boat is a ton of work. But Dad said it was always his dream to own a boat and that we could spend there every weekend on the water as a family. So Dad got to keep the boat. He seemed really happy, but things went downhill fast. A few days later, some people from the homeowner association knocked on our door. They said that there were rules in the neighborhood against having a boat parked in the front house. Told Dad he had to move it to the back. The boat sat in the backyard for the whole summer because Dad was too busy and didn't have time to use it. Then in the fall, when one Dad's coworkers told him he had a winterized the boat to protect it from the cold weather. Dad found out it would cost more a winterized boat than it would cost him to buy it. So he decided he'd take his chances. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, when the temperature dropped below freezing cold, the big crack appeared in the hull. When it started to snow, Dad rolled the boat under the back deck, and it sat there the whole winter. And in the spring, Mom started using it to store all the junk from the house. The next summer, Dad decided he was gonna fix the boat. But when he went to pull it out from the under the deck, he discovered the family of raccoons living in our old washing machine. Dad called the exterminator to get rid of the raccoons, but when he heard how much that was going to cost, he decided to take care of it himself. But then Manny had heard about the baby raccoons living in the washing machine, and Mom had to step in. The boat's been sitting there over there since. I haven't heard any scurrying sounds coming under the deck for a while, so I'm guessing the raccoons moved out. Today, Mom told Dad he had the whole rest of the summer to get his boat out of the water, and he's pretty much gave up after that. Mom said we're going to have to leave first thing in the morning, so we needed to start packing for the trip. She told everyone to bring the bare essentials so we could fit everything in the minivan. But by the time we got all our stuff out of the driveway, it was pretty clear we had a space problem. Mom started going through everything and sorting it into two piles. The whole thing we needed and the things we didn't. Roderick was pretty disappointed when some of his essentials didn't make the cut. Mom made me leave a bunch of the small stuff behind, which seemed pretty ridiculous considering that Manny's plastic potty was coming along for the ride. Whenever we take a trip that's longer than 15 minutes, Mom brings Manny's potty, just in case. But I get really uncomfortable whenever Manny uses it. Mom wouldn't let me and Roderick take any electronics on the trip, even though they barely take up any space. She always says kids these days don't know how to socialize because they've constantly got their noses 2 inches from the screen. But I'll tell you this, when I have kids, I'm going to let them play with whatever kind of gadget they want. If you ask me, electronics are the key to the family happiness. Even after Mom went through every single item in the driveway and cut out all the things we didn't need, there is still way too much to fit in the van. I suggested that we rent one of the big recreational vehicles because we could fit all of our stuff in it and have room to spare. The way I see it, if you want the whole family to get along, everyone needs their own space. And with one of those souped up RVs, we could spend weeks on the road without even bumping into another. But Mom said RVs are too expensive and they get terrible gas mileage. So that put an end to that idea. Roderick said maybe we could get one of those trailers you tow behind the car, which sounded smart to me. But it was pretty clear Roderick was imagining the trailer as a sort of mini apartment for himself, so that wasn't going to fly either. Then Dad rang in with his own idea. He said we could solve the whole space issue by just putting the stuff that didn't fit in the van into the boat, which we could tow behind us. I think Mom realized there wasn't really another option, so she caved in. But getting the boat into the driveway was easier said than done. Not only did we have to take all the junk out of the boat, but it turned out there was a tree growing through the bottom. It took 3 hours to get the boat out of under the deck, and let me just say, Mom did not exactly go out of her way to help. After we got the boat into the driveway, Dad patched up the holes in the bottom of the crack in the hull with some duct tape. I just hope we're not going anywhere near the water on this trip, though. Because as far as I know, the boat didn't come with any life preserves Saturday. Even with the added space we got from the boat, the minivan was still pretty full. I snuck my pillow on board at the last second because I decided I was entitled to at least one luxury item. I figured Roderick would want to sit in the back of the van because whenever we go anywhere as a family, he likes to stretch out and take a nap. Every once in a while, we'll forget Roderick was even back there. This Easter, we made it halfway through church before Mom realized Roderick never made it out of the van. Back when we had a station wagon, me and Roderick used to sit in the way back together, in the seat that faces the rear window. But we got in big trouble when we played a practical prank on Mom and Dad that ended up getting us pulled over by the police. When we got into the van today, Roderick offered me the back seat. I accepted before he could change his mind, but I should have known his offer was too good to be true. Before we pulled out of the driveway, Mom said we were taking a special guest along for the ride. For a second, I was worried we were picking someone else up, because with all of our stuff in the van, they'd have to sit on the roof. But Mom opened her purse and pulled out a piece of paper with the drawing on it. The drawing was Flat Stanley, a character from a book I read in 2nd grade. Flat Stanley is a boy who gets squished by a bulletin board that's flattens off his bedroom wall, and in the middle of the night. And when they pull up the bulletin board off of him, he was thin as a piece of paper. I thought it was pretty cool that Flat Stanley could fold himself up to get mailed to his grandma's and have his brother fly him like a kite. But I'll tell you this, if Flat Stanley had a brother like Roderick, I guarantee he wouldn't survive the whole day. I really liked the book, but it kind of freaked me out too. One thing I did was it gave me deathly fear of bulletin boards. Are you sure you don't want the bed? It's a lot more comfy. That's okay. You take it. In second grade, everyone in my class had a color and to cut out a flat Stanley and mail him to a friend or relative who lived far away. Then that person was supposed to take a picture of Flat Stanley in front of something interesting to mail him back with a photo. My friend Riley sent Flat Stanley to a bunch of his relatives and got a lot of cool pictures back. Riley even sent him to his uncle who lived in Asia, and he took a picture with Flat Stanley in front of the Great Wall of China. Well, the first person Mom sent my Flat Stanley to was her cousin Stacy, who lives in Seattle, but she probably wasn't the best choice. Stacy was one of those people who hoard all sorts of stuff, like newspapers, magazines, so Mom should have known that once her cousin got her hands on Flat Stanley, he wasn't coming back. Today, Mom said that she was going to take photos of our Flat Stanley in front of a lot of cool places we visit. Then we make a scrapbook of our trip. And as soon as we got on the highway, she started snapping pictures. But she was probably a little too eager because her first few pictures weren't exactly keepers. When Mom wasn't taking pictures, Flat Stanley was taped to the front air conditioning vent. All I can say, he was having a lot better ride than I was. The window in the back of the van don't open, and the vents were blocked by all our luggage, so I wasn't getting any cold air. What made me even more uncomfortable, was the fact that Mom was in control of the trip. Mom always tries to make things about education, and I know she was going to turn this experience into a long lesson. She's been doing that ever since I was little. I remember when I got scratched by Grandma's cat and Mom tried to turn it into a teaching moment. Cat. C-A-T. Cat. Sure enough, a half an hour into the trip today, Mom started with the educational stuff. She had borrowed a bunch of CDs from the library that teach Spanish, and she said we'd use a long stretches on the road to learn a new language as a family. Hola, learn to speak Spanish fluently. Mom always says that learning a foreign language is the best thing you can do for your brain. That might be true, but I think she should leave the actual teaching to the schools. Mom decided it would be a good idea to expose me to a foreign language early on. So when I was in first grade, she would put the Spanish-speaking channel on TV while we ate breakfast. Mom would repeat whatever they said on the television, but she said the words, they came out a little bit different. Tengo. Hambre. Tengo. Hamburgers. I ended up learning all sorts of phrases that weren't right. For example, the way you're supposed to say, "What's your name?" in Spanish, "¿Cómo te llamas?" Well, I know that now because I learned it in middle school Spanish. But when I was little, Mom taught me that "what's your name" in Spanish is "te amo," which actually means "I love you." I just wish I had known that before I said it to a million different people. Today, Mom played the first 2 Spanish CDs, but she got frustrated that no one seemed to be paying attention, so she switched gears and said we were gonna play a card game she learned about in her magazine. The game was called Alphabet Groceries, and you play it like this. The first player has the name of an item you can get at a grocery store that starts with the letter A. The next person has to come up with an item that starts with B, and so on. If a player can't come up with an item that starts with the letter, they're out of the game. Mom said I should go first, and I said apple, which I guess was kind of obvious choice. Roger came up next, and he couldn't come up with a food that started with B. Pretty sure he was lying to get out of having to play the game, but with Roderick, you never know. When Roderick got knocked out, then the turn went to Manny, who came up with his word right away. Mom started clapping, but the point of that babble isn't a real word. She said Manny is just learning the alphabet and that we all need to encourage him. I quit in protest, and from then on, it was only Manny, Mom, and Dad playing. I really wished my earbuds were buried in my duffel bag under the pile of suitcases, because the next hour and a half was painful. All that talking of food was actually getting me kind of hungry. And when I saw a sign for the drive-through place, the next exit, I asked Mom if we could pull over, but Mom said we wouldn't be able stopping at any of those kind of restaurants because they don't deserve real food. They don't serve real food. She said fast food places lure kids in with cheap plastic toys and trick them into eating sugar and fat, and we weren't gonna fall into that trap. Mom said she had a bunch of better alternatives and handed me a lunch bag with my name on it. Mom said she got the mommy meal idea from Family Folk, which I guess should not have come to a surprise. Inside the bag was a tuna fish sandwich, an orange, a little carton of milk, plus something wrapped in tinfoil. Mom said I had to eat the fruit before I unwrapped the tinfoil because it was my prize. But I wish I had just opened it right away because I wouldn't have eaten the whole orange. And if I'd known the prize was a pack of math cards. Roderick got flashcards in his lunch too, and we could both see where this was headed. So before Mom could turn the next hour of trip into a tutor lesson, I pulled out one of the games Mom had packed in the big tote bag. The game I grabbed was called I Must Confess, and when Mom saw it, she got so excited she forgot about the flashcards. I read the rule, which were pretty simple. One of the person takes a card from the deck and reads it out loud to everyone else. I must confess I've met a famous person. If one of the players has done the thing that's written on the card, they earn a point, and the first player to get 10 points wins. I was a little skeptical at first, but I have to admit the game was actually kind of fun. I learned a lot of things about Mom and Dad I never knew before. I found out that Dad had met a pet chameleon when he was kind of a kid, and Mom dyed her hair blonde once, which really surprised me. Believe it or not, even Roderick was getting into the game. He got to point for being the only person who'd ever slept out overnight for tickets to a concert, and another point of getting a bug stuck in his ear, which I remember like it was yesterday. Dad and Roderick were neck to neck with 9 points, and whoever scored next would win the game. Mom seemed really happy everyone was getting along and having fun. Then she pulled the new card out of the deck, and it read, I must confess I have toilet papered the neighbor's house. Pretty sure Mom thought no one was going to get the point on the card, but she was already reaching for the next one. But Roderick started acting like he had just won the lottery. I win. Mom thought Roderick was lying to get a point, but he told her it was true. He said that a few months ago, he and his bandmates toilet papered Miss Tutali's house next door after she called the police to complain that they were making too much loud rehearsing. Roderick thought the whole thing was pretty funny, but Mom seemed amused. Let me get this straight. You and the two of your bandmates toilet papered an elder woman's house? If I was Roderick, I would have changed my story real quick and said I was just joking around to win a game. but Roderick didn't seize his chance to bail out. No, there were 4 of us. Mom had Dad pull over and sit the side of the road, then handed Roderick her phone and made him call Miss Tootle to apologize, which was awkward for everyone in the car. I'm sorry for toilet paper in your house, ma'am. After that, it was quiet in the van for a long time. Mom was about to pop the next Spanish CD in the stereo, but luckily Manny had fallen asleep and then she couldn't. If you wake up Manny in the middle of one of his naps, he'll go completely ballistic, and there's no calming him down. So whenever Manny falls asleep, Mom and Dad do everything they can to keep him that way. Hey, has anyone seen my I was big on naps when I was Manny's age too. I used to take an hour-long nap after lunch every day. And when I started preschool, we had an official nap time when everyone pulled out a mat and slept on the floor. If you ask me, I think they should give kids nap time all the way through college, but they stopped doing it after preschool, which I found out the hard way. On the first day of kindergarten, after we had our snacks, I asked the teacher where the mats were so we could lie down and recharge our batteries. But she said kindergartners don't have nap time, and I thought she was just making a funny joke. Yeah, right. A few minutes later, the whole class was making paper bag puppets. Apparently, I was the only one who didn't get a heads up about the no nap thing, because for the rest of the day, everyone else seemed fine, while I was barely functioning. I'm glad Mom remembered to bring a pacifier on the trip, because as long as Manny got one stuck in his mouth, he can sleep through just about anything. Manny lost his favorite pacifier last night, but Dad ran out to get a new one at the store near the house to sell gag gifts. I guess it looks a little strange, but it works just as well as a regular one. Manny had been sleeping peacefully for about an hour today. When we stopped at the toll booth, Dad rolled down his window to get a ticket, and the guy in the booth had such a loud voice, he sounded like he was speaking through a microphone. Hope you all are having an awesome day. Manny started to fuss, and his pacifier came halfway out of his mouth, but luckily Roderick reacted quickly and Manny fell back asleep. I think Mom was a little frustrated that Manny was napping in the first place. She had marked a bunch of the places on her map where she wanted us to stop to get out and for sightseeing, but now we had to keep driving. The problem I had with Manny's nap was that I really needed to get out of the car to stretch, but I couldn't. And that is the end of part 1. I will see you guys in part 2 later on.